this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Sunday morning chat today starts off with a Houston statement, as in Houston we have a problem. We have two problems, in fact. The first problem is that Wales are playing on the TV in the Rugby World Cup, so I've got one eye on that, keeping my eye on what's going on. Come on, Wales. I've got an affinity with Wales. I've spent a lot of my life there. I lived there for a while. I've worked there on and off, and at one point I actually worked there for nearly 4 years. It's a country I have an affinity with anyway, despite me supposedly being in English, although I haven't got many loyalties there, I must admit. Anyway, so that's problem number one. And problem number two is, as we get older, we have to accept mobility issues, I'll call them. I've got a very slight problem in my right shoulder. It goes back to excessive use. I used to play a hell of a lot of squash and badminton, and over a long period of time, and that shoulder used to take punishment, basically. It's a racket game at the end of the day, or 2 racket games. Never played tennis though, otherwise it could be a lot flipping worse. It's basically tennis elbow of the shoulder from badminton and squash. But every now and again, when I get up in the morning, it's a little stiff, and it lasts 5 or 10 minutes. So I don't take any notice of it, it's just there. And today I got up and it hurt, rather than just being a niggle, and I can't lift my arm up properly without it hurting. So we don't do it, you know. That's what pain is for. It's to tell you to stop doing things, not carry on. So although this is okay, I can't lift my arm up high, so I can't get at stuff up high at the moment. And the plan is to look at all the Cattleyas, and some of those are mounts, and they're hanging up in the roof. But I have got a left hand that works perfectly well, so hopefully we can still get round all of the Cattleyas. That's the idea, or Cattleya types we'll call them. Starting off with the highest, left-handed, and that's the reason the camera's down low. I don't want to be holding the plants up, so you'll have to put up without seeing my ugly mug. What do you mean that's a blessing, cheek? But yeah, so I'm going to go around all the Cattleya types today, relatively quickly, so I don't want this dragging on too long. This is my Brassivola Little Stars, which has pushed out a lot of new growths this year. See, I can quite comfortably hold this plant and show you without worrying about lifting the thing up in the air, which is the idea. Now this one's got some scale on it, and if I touch them, they just brush off. So I do believe that new bug spray's done its job. Anyway, lots of new growths on here this year, some of which are starting to show their sheaths at the base. They're going to be difficult to single out because it's a tangle, but this one here, oh, this is going to be impossible. But this one here has a sheath, and there are several others. So this one will come into bloom eventually. I don't know how long it's going to take actually. I don't remember when it last bloomed. It has bloomed before, but we've got sheaths and we've got, let's just have a quick count round. It's trying to differentiate between old growths and new growths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not 6. One with 2 leaves here. 7, 8. There's 9 or 10 new growths this year, so that's half as big again, which is not bad for a season's growth. So coming on, and I'm sure blooms will come. It's really done a good root system this year, because it wasn't that good when I got it, but it's really attached. I could de-wire that now. Roots going round the back. We've even got ones that have managed to find a hole through here and grow round the back, and it's pushed out above, below, so nice plant now. The only trouble with the left hand is it's not quite as accurate as the right hand. Some of these we may have looked at recently, but I want to do the lot all in one go. Everything's catching up. Of course, I've got to find everything because having rearranged everything. Right, this is the one that's got little lemon drops in it, and it's crossed with Encyclia Vetilinea, or Linea, however you want to say it. This one's in bud, so we're going to get blooms on this one quite soon. Hang on, where's my camera? So yes, we have buds on this one, and this one's bloomed on the latest 3 growths. So as it's progressing in this direction, off in this direction, it's not pushed out anything round the back. It looks like it was grown from a seedling, looking at the tiny little pseudobulbs gradually progressing, and now each successive new growth actually blooms. The first time it bloomed it only had, well, it had 2 buds and 1 bloom, 1 blasted. This was a good spike, and this is another one, a good one coming on. I'm not going to hang these up now, I'll do it in a minute. This one, this is another one, that was out of the big box, and so was this one. And this is, I can't read it, the flipping thing's faded. I'll do pop-ups, it's the easiest way. That way I'm sitting down and don't have to lift my arms up. But this is growing on. Again, I think this was started as a seedling, looking at the tiny little pseudobulbs, and it's gradually progressed. Its last decent sized new growth didn't produce any blooms. Its latest new growth has decided to go bifoliate and produce 2 leaves, and there is a sheath that is absolutely bone dry. But some Cattleyas do that. The sheath goes totally dry and the buds come later. That could still easily be a blind sheath because it's yet to bloom, this one. So I've got no guarantee we're going to get blooms on that. It would be nice to see what they're going to look like, but possibly not on that growth. If it doesn't bloom on this one, it should well do on the next one. It obviously thinks it's reaching blooming size now, so we should get there soon. So coming on. Again, you know, these that came out of the big box that were mounted, the smaller ones, they've all produced reasonable root systems. So, yeah, they're all nicely attached now, except this one. And this one's struggling. And it seemed to be growing okay. Now this has lost a few leaves, and it aborted its new growth here, but it started a new one, so it's successfully producing a new one. Roots on this are not so good, but it is starting to grow some roots, or a root, under that little new growth. And this one's got a name about 8 foot long, but it is it's got Leopoldii in it and various other things. Which is, Leopoldii is quite a large Cattleya. So I think this is a very young plant, so it's got a long way to go. But that started to struggle. Now it seems to be picking up again. We'll see what that one does. And then there's one more up there, which is a piece of the BC Make that just fell off in the angirona when I was repotting it, which I planted it up to see if it would grow. And it is, but it's very slow progress. Its latest new growth produced 2 leaves instead of 1. It's only got 3 bulbs and they're tiny. And it's grown some roots, it's attached. So it's a living plant to grow on. I would suggest that's many years away from blooming size, but it was only a tiny little piece. I mean, strictly speaking, that's for somebody else at some point. Don't all shout at once, not now. I'm not posting anything else out this year apart from the one thing I'm obliged to that's a year late, which we talked about. Now the next 2 are not going to be easy because they are around the back of this rack and up high, but I'm hoping they'll come out left-handed without knocking everything over and pulling everything else down off the rack. Oh dear. This rearranging stuff has made for a few difficulties, but they're only at watering time. This one is Genmanii variety Cerulean. And this one's grown on nicely. It's only growing in one direction, yeah, so it's growing from its oldest bulb over here, yellowing leaf, that's going to fall off soon, in this direction, and the last growth it produced and matured had a little stump in there, and I thought, I wonder if that's going to be one of those that pushes buds out. Well, it did nothing, and then it produced this growth, which due to the direction of light decided to head back up along the length of the plant, and that's got a huge sheath on it, and at the moment there's no swelling at the base. So I don't know what that one's actually going to do, whether that is going to produce buds later down the line. Some Cattleyas do that, especially in the species, mature the bulb, produce the sheath and stop. And then they sit like that for some time, sometimes months. And then at some point down the line, the buds come. Now, it could be one of those. I haven't looked it up, can't be bothered. But what this one's done is a hell of a good root system. On a mounted Cattleya, that's an excellent root system. It's gone right down there, it's coming out sideways, going up over the top of the mount. A lot of aerial ones, but an awful lot that have attached. So that one's coming on nicely. If that sheath doesn't bloom, I'm sure it will on the next one. So on its way, that one. Oh, and I always forget this one. It's just out of the corner of my eye, I just spotted it. Oh, ow. Come on, down you come. It's my little Cattleya cernua. That was Sophronitis once, but it's Cattleya now. Now this one did really well last year. It produced a lot of new growths, and they all bloomed together. We had a little mass blooming on this back in December last year, and it looks like it's heading towards doing the same thing. Got some new growth up in there, on the end of my finger, another one hanging down here. There's another one pushing out next to that one, another two there in fact, right on the edge of the plant. And then we've got a nice big one here, nice one here. So it's pushing new growths up the middle of the plant as well as around the outside. Another good one here, 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 here. It's got a lot of new growths. Again, I don't know whether they're all going to bloom at once or not, or whether it's going to have a staggered blooming. But each one of those new growths should bloom. No reason why it shouldn't. Same conditions as the year before that produced the mass blooming and lots of new growths. But they are at different stages. I mean, this one's actually opening its leaves now. You can see that's a developing growth. It's about to, open up. And that's going to be the first one to bloom, I suspect. Whereas some of the others are in their infancy, yeah? So they're not all going to be at blooming stage at the same time, that's for sure. So it's more likely to be a staggered blooming this time, but it grows nicely for me, that one. Let's see if I can put that one back in one go. Get up there. Right, then there's one more. No, actually that's not a Cattleya, don't be daft, Roger. I think that's it up in the roof, scanning round. Yep, so that's all the mounted ones. Right, let's get the we'll leave the awkward one till last, simply because I'll have somewhere to put it. So it's this lot now over here, which you can't see what I'm pointing out about, but what's happening with the score in there? Missed a try, never mind. This is just a Cattleya hybrid. It was the tatty part of the plant. The better part of the plant went to somebody else. Its latest new growth is not as big as it should be, but it did struggle for a while after being split from its main part of the plant. But we do have a sheath on there. At the moment it's not pushing buds, but it's highly likely to. That one's always bloomed on its latest growth, but that's the first time it's had to push a new growth up after a major setback. Right, so let's get that coffee down there out of the way, or it's going to get knocked over. Right, some of these are going to have to go on the floor. Now this is the one that I got at the Welsh Orchid show. This is one of our Cattleya series plants. Which we've looked at relatively recently, so I don't spend too much time on this. But this one has bloomed here. These were the two growths that were in bloom when we got it. And its other new growth is maturing. It has a sheath. At the moment, I don't see any buds. But then it got disturbed, so it may well be that that growth doesn't bloom. It is now starting to grow new roots. I took a risk when I repotted that. There were no sign of new roots, but they're growing now in many places. Bottom of this one, bottom of that one, and bottom of that one are all showing new roots growing now. Oh, and there's one there too. So roots coming, so it will re-establish itself nice and quickly. Now, this strange looking thing, A wispy bifoliate, this one. This is never going to look an elegant plant. When I got it, it had pseudobulbs heading off in all directions, some of which were slightly damaged, but it is a bifoliate, and it's grown round in a semicircle. Yeah, so it was heading off in that direction, and it's turned round and headed back against itself, and that was deliberate. That was using light to pull the new growth round and head it off in a different direction. The reason being, it will save me repotting it because it won't climb out the pot. It's very high in its pot though, but that doesn't matter. The roots get down in, go right down through the pot and out the bottom, so it doesn't matter that it's potted a little high. This was its latest growth, and it bloomed. So we have seen the blooms on this one. You'll have to excuse the names, I'll get to those in a minute. And this one is being a bit reluctant to start its next growth, but I do notice the hard sheath around the base of that new growth is now splitting. So it is just going to start its new growth soon. Okay, so that's that one. The name on that one just will not stick. I can never remember what that one is. Right, what have we got here? What we've got here is Cattleya hybrid orange. And this one, remember I said not all Cattleyas like highlight? That's one of them. That's had too much light this year. Quite a bit of purple on the leaves. Yeah, too much light. So that one's now away from the glass. A bit less light. This was one where we cut the rhizome, and in cutting the rhizome, there, left hand Roger, we got a new growth here. So this is grown out of the back of the plant. It's got a sheath. Has it got any swelling in it? Not yet. And then round the other side of the plant, it pushed up this one, which has a sheath that's drying, and then it has another new growth pushing on here. So this has got 3 new growths, 2 with sheaths and 1 heading towards maturity. This has always bloomed quite reliably, so I expect at least some of those new growths to bloom sometime soon. That appears in quite a lot of places, the blooms on that one. Nice cluster, bright orange. Cattleya, that one. I'm getting up to the monsters now. Oh. It's not so easy working left-handed, but it's working. This new growth's doing something very odd, because it produced a sheath, and this one produces a double sheath. So it produces a large sheath with a smaller one inside, and then the buds come up. But this one decided to grow a new leaf out of the top of the sheath, and I've never seen a Cattleya do that before. So what that's up to, I don't know. But as a consequence, that may now not bloom. But inside that leaf that it's thrown out the middle of the sheath is another sheath. That's a very strange configuration. Normal leaf and sheath, that's what I'd expect, although it does produce 2 leaves normally. But the sheath came first, and then the second leaf pushed up through the middle of the sheath, and then it's grown another sheath up through the middle of that leaf. Goodness knows what that's up to. It's got another new growth round here, which may be doing the same thing. No swelling yet at the base of that one. And then it's got yet another new growth round here pushing on, a smaller one. So quite a few new growths on here. We should get some blooms on at least one of those, if not more. Oh, that's a big one. Got some old yellowing leaves on the oldest part of the plant. Now this one we have got, I was going to say we've got buds on this one. I might have to rephrase it and say bud. Now this one, I'll get the 2 down together because they're a pair. I actually split a plant and there's somebody who likes recreating plants from the back end of old plants. You know, when you take the back end of an old plant off, I tend to dump it. But there's somebody who watches regularly that likes to produce lots of plants as a consequence of taking back bits off. So basically, to keep the peace, we'll call it, I decided to plant up the back bit of this because this back bit is really tatty. The leaves on it are awful. So I was quite happy to just chuck that in the bin. But under persuasion, I decided to pot it and see what happened. It had virtually no roots. Well, it's grown roots. It now has a pot full of roots. And blow me, it pushed up 2 new growths. So we've got this one with a bud on the top, singular. This is a very large flowered Cattleya. Just hybrid, it's got no name. Oh no, this is Angel Heart, it has got a name. And it has another new growth round here with a sheath that has split, and there is a bud inside there. So this is going to bloom on those 2 new growths, albeit probably with a single bloom on both, but they are large. So that's the back end of the plant. Now we'll go and see if I can find the front end, which is this one. So this was the front end with what I was hoping would end up being a nice looking Cattleya, because it had good leaves on the older part of the plant. That's these 2 growths here. This was the older part of the plant with some nice green leaves without marks all over them. Now this one was producing new growths, new roots, and it has done that. It's produced a good root system right down out the pot and down underneath it, and only produced a single new growth. I took a bit of a risk because when I took this piece off, it only had 2 bulbs. Normally I would say minimum 3 and a new growth, preferably 4. But nonetheless, it's going to bloom. We've got 3 nice buds there, and given that they're large blooms, that's going to look good down the line. And not too long, but the buds take quite a while on this one to actually get to bloom, because they need to get so big. Very large flowered Cattleya, that one. It's the typical floofy Cattleya, as I call them, you know, lots of magenta with a yellow bit in the middle and some deep purple. Then we'll start singing Smoke on the Water. Right, little one here. And this one is, this is the other one with little lemon drops in, and that's crossed with Cattleya, why not? This is growing in several directions, bloomed not that long ago, and it should bloom again on this new growth here, which is pushing out nicely. Bifoliate, this one. It's one of those where the old roots look dead, but they're not. And they branch out every now and again. So I would call that a poor root system if I got it. Quite a few growing tips that have not grown, the aerial ones, but those that went down in the pot did grow. We've still got some green tips on some of the roots, but it's done its roots thing for this year now with the new growths that it put up. So it won't be growing anymore now for a while. And on this plant, the roots get tired very quickly. It might actually do better on a mount, as it is quite small. But for now, it's staying in there. So another set of blooms to come on that one. That has a gorgeous bloom on it. Lovely colour. Small, but, you know, a fair few on the spike. Ouch! Now this is my purpurata thing. Laelia purpurata variety Atropurpurea. It says a lot of purple in its name, and I have seen what the blooms look like, but not on this plant. Notorious non-bloomer. And many people have said that because it came from the southern hemisphere originally, it's just taking an awful long time to get its genetic makeup into growing its new growths at the right time for the northern hemisphere, which it hasn't done yet. But we've got 2 nice growths coming on. We've got one over this side of the plant. It's got 2 leads effectively, it's split, and another one on this side of the plant. They are just starting their new roots. Or that one is. That one's just starting its new roots. This one is yet to push them out, but it's slightly behind, it's slightly smaller. These new growths need to mature at the right time of year. Now, I get a feeling that each year they're coming out slightly earlier. So it is slowly but surely changing its seasons. Whether I can get blooms on this latest two growths, who knows? But I'm patiently waiting because I know what I'm waiting for, and I'm prepared to wait. I'll just pop that up there for now. And then the last one on this shelf, which can go straight back where it comes from, is my Laelia, brain gone, Anceps, come on. And on this one we've got two nice spikes, so we're going to get blooms down the line soon. The spikes are now, they come up cylindrical, and then they change their shape and flatten. And once you see them flatten like that, the buds are going to come out from the sheaths. How many I don't know, and this one's just flattening as well. So we've got two nice spikes on there on the latest two growths. The two growths last time, neither of them bloomed, and I just put that down to changing its position. As the growths were coming on, I read up, and I think I chatted with Rachel as well, that Laelia anceps is a cooler grower. So I put it in a cooler place, and unfortunately it reduced its light level, so it didn't bloom. It didn't like the change, so it's now gone back with all the others, and it's a case of below the temperature, I need the light, and this time we've got spikes. So putting it back where it originally was has done the job. Sometimes making a change, you inadvertently make two changes, and the other one is not what you want. So you've got to keep your eye on moving things around. Now this one here this is the one with the 8-foot long name, Shin Fong Little Sun Young Min Orange Boy. This appears in quite a few places in photos as well. Nice blooms on this. This was another one where we split the rhizome and got some excessive new growths. These funny little growths around the back of the plant did actually bloom, and it's brought a lead to the back of the plant, which is now pushing up another new growth. This one's got scale all over it. Do they come off easily? Yes, so they're dead. This is the latest growth around the other side of the plant, and if I tip that over, this is what you get if scale get at a new growth as the leaves are forming. They leave marks, and you're stuck with those marks forevermore. Yeah, that's not a nice clean leaf on that growth, or that one. Yeah, there was a scale on the back there, it just brushes off without any effort at all, so it is dead. But we do have a sheath on this growth, so hopefully, we'll start knocking things around now. Hopefully that one will bloom down the line. We like our orange, and then it's going to start getting difficult soon. This is my Ivanagara apple blossom. I don't care what it's called now, that's what it's called in here. And latest growth has a sheath. It will bloom. How many blooms we get remains to be seen. And this one is going to get its rhizome cut, because I'm getting fed up with it only pushing out one growth at a time, so I'm going to try and force it back. It's absolutely perfect for doing that at the moment. What you've got here is the latest growth here, previous growth, so there's 3, and that one makes 4, and then the rhizome drops down to these 3 old bulbs right by where it was wired into the pot. I can cut through that rhizome by that wire as easy as anything. It's just remembering, next time I water that, I'll do that cut, and then hopefully we can get a new growth back here. This is another one. Watch your light on this one. This one got singed. This one, you know, if you've got an Ivanagara apple blossom, less than most of your other Cattleyas are happy with. How much less? You'll have to work it out. But this one got too much light. This is last year, not this year, and singed the leaves. And like I say with Cattleya leaves, if they get damaged, you're stuck with them until they drop off, which can be donkey's years away. So you end up with a tattier looking plant than perhaps you would have liked. Oh, call that a Debbie. Now this one looks grossly overpotted, and in theory at this point in time it is, but apparently it grows into a monster. It's a relatively young plant, and this is Laelia tenebrosa, Aurea, variety Aurea. It'd be nice to see some blooms on this, but I don't think this is going to bloom for a while yet. It didn't have a very good root system. Its root system's now grown, made its way down through the pot, now through the bottom. Yeah, so we've got roots coming out down there, and we have a new growth that at the moment doesn't seem to be pushing out many roots. The roots are coming from the previous bulb, not off the latest one. But it's growing on now. It looks like it'll get up to at least the size of the previous bulbs. But I suspect this one's still getting itself established. So probably a fair way off blooming, that one. Excuse me. And then we have the red one. One singular, and as usual, a cold cup of coffee. I've missed another try. God, things I do for you lot. Every time I look, the score's gone up again, and I didn't see it happen. But Wales are well out in front at the moment, so that are good. And if you're supporting whoever they're playing, sorry, that's the way it goes. Quite honestly, when I watch rugby, I'm not really one of those who supports a team. What I like to see is a good game. Yeah? Whoever wins, you know. Somebody got to win. Very rarely get a draw in rugby. Does happen, but very rare. Right, so this is the red one. This is Cyan Red Pearl, Red Dragonfly. They made sure they got plenty of red in the name. A very bolt upright grower. I love it for that. Just for that reason. Each cane is bolt upright, nice compact, short rhizome, good stuff. Latest growth has a sheath, buds to come later. I can't remember whether it's one of those that has a bit of a rest after the sheath's formed. This has grown a lot of roots out through the pot, out sideways. The oldest part of the plant had virtually no roots, so all the roots have come from the latest two growths. Previous growth bloomed, so we have seen those before, and I see no reason why it shouldn't bloom on that one. It's a good sized cane, nice and fat, nice leaf, so that one's to come. I'm running out of places now. Oh, mind you, we're nearly done now. This one we looked at a short while ago, but we didn't. This is quite good, this one, because when I was going to say when I pick it up, the tray sticks to it because it's got some roots that have gone down underneath. And in between watering, they grab hold of the tray. This is my Encyclia cordidera. It's actually got a clonal name. It's not the ordinary one. It has got a clonal name. Memory of Chantel before she packed up orchids in our country and went off to Australia. And virtually lost this plant. It's been recovered. It had virtually no roots when it was repotted. Well, it's certainly made up for that since then. I've now got a pot full of roots, including down through the pot now at the bottom and out the holes. So good root system now. Quite a few new growths on here. I'm expecting them to bloom. This being the strongest over here. This is a good sized bulb. There's no reason why that shouldn't bloom, no reason at all. And there are others, some of which are still maturing. There's a nice one in the middle here, pushing up. No sheaths in there yet, but with this I'm patiently waiting because it's missed out on 2 years worth of blooming, so it hasn't bloomed for some time. It's got its strength back, it's got maturing pseudo bulbs that are full sized and a good root system to back it up. There is no reason why that shouldn't bloom. When, I don't know, because it hasn't done it for a long time. Right, let's chuck that up there. Now, what have we got now? We've got to get around. I need places to put things to get things out. So I'm going to end up at the end of this session with plants all over the flipping place and not in the right place. Right, that allows me to get at this one. I've got a feeling we have a look at that not too long ago. This is another one of those what I call straggly, long spindly, relatively narrow pseudo bulbs, and this one bloomed. That was its first blooming for me. It's got a single rhizome, single lead, and strangely enough, because of me playing with light, that's the previous bulb sticking out the back of the plant. because I deliberately turned it that way to pull it away. Yeah, so that was the previous bulb. This is the latest one. I've now allowed it to head back in its normal direction. The next new growth that comes off can just do its own thing. It's got plenty of room around the pot, plenty of room around here to push another growth up. Massive root system on this with very fleshy roots, very thick fleshy roots. So got no complaints with the roots. No sign of its next new growth yet. And this is another one where I've got 1, 2, 3 pseudo bulbs on a single rhizome with 3 more behind. That one can be cut. See if I can get another lead pushing out round the back of the plant round here. It's a rhizome that I can get at, so I can make a cut in there, leaving 3 bulbs at the back and 3 bulbs at the front. But I'll wait until it comes back into active growth, because it'll, in the rhizome, it will have the hormone saying grow. So by cutting the rhizome at that time, you're more likely to get a shoot. So I think we're going to have to revert to the floor now. Right, that's that one. The Broughtonia Laelia cross we've recently looked at. I'm not looking at that one again, because we had that one in the kitchen to have a look at see if there were any new roots yet. So that's a recent viewing. The last 2 on this shelf. Ow! Left hand, Roger. So I've got a leaf caught up in a plant that's decided to drag it with it. These are the 2 little rescue Cattleyas that have been being rescued for so many years I've forgotten how many. And this one is now coming on. Let's see if I can... yeah, we have a new growth. I don't know whether it's going to get to full size, but it has grown some new roots to go with that new growth, or is growing some new roots, and some of the older roots have branched and pushed out. So it's actually grown some roots out the bottom of the pot. So this is now actively growing. Yeah? I mean, if you have a look at the oldest 2 pseudo bulbs that are about 4 years old, yeah, from there it's taken that long to get to that point. And I doubt if that new growth is going to get to that size. So it's still going to be undersized, but at least it's trying. It's struggling still, but trying, and now it has roots. So it should get going a bit better now. And the other one, its sister plant, is not trying so hard. Now come on. This is the other one. Much smaller version this time. No large pseudo bulbs, and it has what looks like the start of a new growth just there at the base. It's an eye. I wouldn't call it a growth yet, it's just an eye, but it's green and it looks bigger each time I look at it, slowly. Now this one's got nowhere near such a good root system, but it has pushed some down into the pot and out the bottom, and quite a few have wrapped round the top. They're not brilliant, but they're there. But I need a new growth on that one. For that one to be saved, it needs a new growth. Right, then we've got one more to dig out. Oh, it's going to be an awkward one too. It's got mounts in front of it, pots in front of it. Ow! Running out of places to put things where they're not going to fall over. Stay. I've just trodden on a root as well. That lovely big long root that was sticking out of that plant has now got a flat end. Never mind, it's got plenty more. Ow! And this is the last one, and this is a community pot that is not happy. Complete with water from last time I watered it. This is not a happy plant. In fact, plants. There's 4 plants in here. It's losing leaves in places. The leaves are quite badly marked in places, and all of that is scale. This one got it bad, real bad. Got right up onto the undersides of the leaves in places. all over the base of the plant, and it's messed up its look, shall we say. But as I said, there's 4 plants in there, and if you look right in the middle there, those 2 leaves there are its latest new growth. Look at the colour of them. Deep purple markings all over them. And there's another new growth here. Look at the colour of those leaves. This is not a happy bunny, this plant. Nonetheless, it's got a massive pot full of roots. I mean, if I turn it round there, I mean, it's just a massive pot full of roots. It's not a root issue, that's for sure. But it's not a happy bunny. Now these, as I was going to say, there are still some scale on the undersides of some of these leaves. And they're not all brushing off, so I've still got some active ones on this plant. So this needs to get another spray. The whole grow room is due a second spray with that new treatment, which seems to have worked almost across the board. But this one was so bad, I was expecting this to need a second dose. It's also got incredibly thick leathery leaves, so it's possible that the stuff isn't being absorbed as well as it perhaps could on some other plants, or does on some other plants. But what's up with this, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. It does actually smell damp. I'm wondering whether, because of the shape of the pot, the bottom of this pot is staying wet. Bearing in mind the tray was full of water. I mean, it's got a lot of aerial roots on it and loads of roots in the top of the pot. But I'm wondering whether the roots are not happy down in the bottom of that pot. It might be time to get the whole thing out and look at what's going on. And that would also give me a chance to give it a hell of a good clean up as far as the scale are concerned. Because the scale are right in the base of the plant, all in amongst the roots. It's quite bad, this one. I think that really could do with coming out and separating again and having a look at each individual plant, 2 of which were quite small when they went in there and 2 were a reasonable size. It's only ever bloomed once as well. So, and I'm probably getting fooled into thinking it's a massive mature plant when in fact it's not. There's 2 little ones and 2 reasonable sized ones in there, which give it an overall appearance of a nice mature plant when it isn't, which was the idea. But maybe it could do with separating out and perhaps try a couple of pieces mounted and perhaps another couple of pieces in, perhaps just a new pot. This is an incredibly heavy, thick, chunky pot. And as it's also very soft clay, I remember when I first used this, you put water on this and it disappears instantly. It's very soft clay. So it could be hanging on to nutrients. So the bottom of this pot could not only be perhaps a bit too wet, but also absolutely full of salts. That one needs sorting out. It's not a happy plant. Right, yeah, that's it. End on a bad note, why don't you? I don't know where that other tray went. Let's just get that back where it goes. So, ow. So that's a look at. I'm just looking round because every time I do this, I miss something, and then somebody goes, "What about your so and so?" And I think, "Oh, blast!" So I'm going to scan. Nothing. Dendrobiums, Oncidiums. Nothing. Zygos, bulbos, paths, phalaenopsis rather, more dendrobiums. We've done those, oncidiums, dendrobiums, oncidiums. So I'm just thinking, did I put an odd one somewhere different for some reason or another? I don't think I did. No, I think we're done. That's it. Yes, I can't see anything else, I must admit. There certainly wouldn't be anything in there, it's too dark. Okay, so that's, jeans are dirty anyway. Right, so that's the Cattleyas en masse, the whole lot, with a little bit of a look at some of them, a bit more detailed for others, and my goodness, that school line's rocketed. It's 28-13 at the moment. Oh, and we're having a shouting match. Oh, well done, lads. Control yourselves. Yes, it's a game for animals played by gentlemen. Very rarely get bust-ups. When they do have a bust-up, it does pay to get out of the way. There's some giants in there. Anyway, thanks for dropping by, and sorry for the different approach, but it did actually work. I've managed to get the plants in front of the camera reasonably well without having to lift my arm up, and by going left-handed I've got everything down that was, you know, up in the roof. So I think we've covered everything. No growing advice or anything there. Quite honestly, I did a sort of care guide to Cattleyas as part of the Cattleya type series, so that there is one lurking if you want to go and have a look. Quite honestly, Cattleyas are quite easy. Big deal with Cattleyas is don't repot them at the wrong time. You know, make sure you've got those new roots growing and you can see them, unless your media's all broken down and stinky, in which case just get on with it. Apart from that, most of them need highlight. Those that don't need highlight still need good light. There aren't really any low light ones in there. They're all highlight plants. And wet dry cycle. Cattleya care guide in 3 sentences. Okay, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Bye for now.